It was a winter evening in New York City, and the city's streets were slick with rain that reflected the glow of gas lamps. In the distance, the immense silhouette of a mansion rose against the twilight, a fortress of marble, stone, and dreams. Every window seemed to hold a story, every pillar a testament to ambition. Inside, golden chandeliers sparkled, yet the air carried a weight, one of expectation, pressure, and the inexorable scrutiny that wealth inevitably brings. William K. Vanderbilt, heir to one of America's greatest fortunes, stood at the heart of it all. His gaze traveled over halls lined with tapestries and galleries of European art, and one could almost imagine the heartbeat of a man striving to touch the heavens. Yet, ambition and grandeur were double-edged swords. This mansion, magnificent as it was, would come to symbolize not only achievement, but the fragility of human endeavor. Here began a story of relentless vision, social expectation, and moral complexity. A story of a man who built the grandest mansion in America and ultimately could not preserve it. William Kissam Vanderbilt was born in 1849 into a family whose name was already synonymous with wealth, power, and the audacious spirit of American enterprise. The Vanderbilts had risen from modest beginnings in shipping to dominate railroads, shaping the country's transportation and commerce. Cornelius Vanderbilt, William's grandfather, had famously transformed himself from a ferry operator into the most powerful tycoon of his era, amassing a fortune that seemed almost unfathomable. By the time William entered the world, the Vanderbilt name was both celebrated and scrutinized, admired for its ambition, yet often criticized for the unrelenting pursuit of wealth. Growing up, William inhabited a world that few could imagine. His home was not merely a residence, it was a statement. Marble floors, high ceilings, and sweeping staircases formed the backdrop of his childhood. Yet even amidst such luxury, there were lessons being imparted, not through lectures, but through observation. From an early age, William witnessed the rhythm of commerce, the negotiations of men who could move millions with a single decision, and the subtle, unspoken codes that governed high society. He learned that wealth was both power and responsibility, but also that it could be fleeting if mismanaged. Education, for the young Vanderbilt, was a carefully curated journey. Tutors guided him through mathematics, literature, history, and the classics, but life itself was an education far richer than any book could offer. He spent summers traveling through Europe, walking streets paved with centuries of history, absorbing architecture, art, and the manners of aristocracy. These experiences shaped his tastes, cultivated his eye for detail, and planted the seeds of a lifelong fascination with grandeur and refinement. He would carry these influences into adulthood, both in his personal life and in the monumental projects he would later undertake. Yet William was not simply molded by comfort and exposure. There was a tension in his youth, an awareness of expectation that often presses hardest on those born into legacy. To be a Vanderbilt was to inherit not only wealth, but scrutiny. Every action, every choice, would be measured against the achievements of previous generations. The family's success in railroads had transformed America's economy, and the pressure to contribute, to leave a mark, was ever present. For a young William, the question was not merely how to live within wealth, but how to assert an identity within it, how to be more than a custodian of a fortune, and instead, its architect in his own right. Family relationships further shaped his early development. William's father, William Henry Vanderbilt, was a stern yet capable figure, deeply committed to expanding the family's railroad empire. He taught discipline, strategy, and the nuances of business that would later guide William in financial matters. At the same time, the warmth of his mother provided balance, offering lessons in grace, social etiquette, and the softer qualities that wealth often demands but cannot guarantee. These dual influences, the rigor of enterprise and the elegance of culture, created a young man both ambitious and cultivated, eager to excel yet conscious of the human dimensions that wealth could neither buy nor ignore. Even as a boy, William displayed traits that would later define him: an eye for the grand, a passion for excellence, and a willingness to challenge convention. He was drawn to projects that tested limits, whether in academics, design, or personal endeavors. Friends and acquaintances noted his intensity, his tendency to pursue ambitions with relentless focus, and a charm that could be disarming in social situations. Yet there was also a streak of restlessness, an awareness that the inheritance of fortune was not itself a complete life. He sought meaning and purpose, and he sought it on a scale that matched the enormity of his family name. By his teenage years, William had already begun to experiment with projects and investments, testing both his judgment and his taste. Small estates, renovations, and social ventures became arenas in which he could assert independence. He learned early lessons about risk, reward, and the sometimes unforgiving nature of public opinion. Successes were celebrated, yet failures offered instruction in humility and foresight. These formative experiences cultivated not only skill, but character. A character that would be both tested and revealed as he embarked on his greatest endeavor: the creation of a mansion that would stand as a monument to ambition itself. At the same time, the social context of the Gilded Age shaped William's perceptions and aspirations. This was an era defined by transformation and excess, where fortunes could be made and lost in a generation, and where social standing demanded constant attention. The Vanderbilts, as one of the most prominent families of the age, occupied a position of visibility that few could comprehend. Public scrutiny was constant, and societal expectation often dictated the contours of personal choice. Young William internalized these pressures, understanding that wealth was a platform and that public life required both performance and restraint. In summary, William K. Vanderbilt's early life was defined by a paradox of privilege and pressure. Born into immense wealth, he was surrounded by comfort and culture, yet equally surrounded by expectation and scrutiny. He inherited not only a fortune but a legacy, and with it, the responsibility to forge a path of his own making. These years shaped his tastes, ambitions, and the moral framework that would guide him through triumphs and trials alike. They laid the foundation for a life that would be both extraordinary and fraught, a life in which grandeur and human complexity would forever intertwine. It was in this delicate balance of inheritance and ambition, privilege and expectation, that the seeds of William K. Vanderbilt's future were planted. And it was from this foundation that he would rise to create what many would call America's grandest mansion, a creation as much a reflection of his character as of his wealth, a structure destined to test both his vision and his limitations. By the time William K. Vanderbilt reached adulthood, the world expected nothing less than extraordinary from him. Born into immense wealth, he was already surrounded by the accomplishments of generations that had built empires from railroads and shipping lines. But wealth alone does not make a man. It merely provides the stage. William knew that to define himself, to truly leave his mark, he would need more than inheritance. He would need ambition, vision, and the courage to risk failure in a society that admired success but quietly measured missteps. His early ventures were shaped by a delicate balancing act between the pursuit of personal interests and the weight of family expectations. Small estates became his first arenas of experimentation. He invested in properties with care, remodeling houses and gardens, seeking to combine luxury with a personal touch. Yet even these modest undertakings were not immune to challenge. Costs often exceeded his projections, artisans fell short of perfection, and the pressures of maintaining social appearances added unforeseen complexity. Each obstacle, though frustrating, became a lesson in persistence, planning, and the importance of vision grounded in practicality. Alongside real estate, William pursued ventures in society life and leisure. The Gilded Age demanded visibility for families of his stature, and he quickly discovered that social prominence was both a tool and a trial. Hosting events, attending gatherings, and participating in public endeavors required tact and energy. He learned the subtleties of influence, how to command attention without appearing ostentatious, how to impress peers while maintaining a semblance of humility, and how to navigate the delicate currents of gossip and expectation that flowed through New York's elite circles. These experiences, while socially oriented, were deeply instructive, teaching him about human nature, strategy, and the complex interplay between perception and reality. Yet, not all early experiments were social or architectural. William possessed a keen interest in industry and investment beyond the immediate sphere of railroads. He explored emerging technologies, financial instruments, and ventures that promised innovation. Some succeeded, bolstering both his experience and his reputation. Others faltered, offering lessons in caution and adaptability. Each venture, regardless of outcome, helped shape his understanding of risk, a skill that would prove critical when he embarked on his most ambitious project, the construction of a mansion unparalleled in scale and sophistication. Amid these practical lessons, William began to cultivate his aesthetic sensibilities. Europe had left an indelible mark on his tastes during his youth, and now he sought to apply those influences closer to home. Classical architecture, fine art, and cultivated gardens became more than hobbies. They were statements of identity. His estates were experiments in design, each one a test of his ability to integrate elegance, function, and grandeur. Friends and critics alike noted his meticulous attention to detail, and while admiration followed, subtle criticism was never far behind. Some whispered that his ambitions exceeded necessity, that his desire for distinction bordered on excess. William, however, saw these projects not as vanity, but as preparation, preludes to a life's work he intended to define on a far larger scale. Even as he refined his vision, early struggles in relationships added another layer to his personal development. The expectations of family, the scrutiny of society, and the complex dynamics of friendship and romance demanded diplomacy, patience, and insight. He learned that character was revealed not only in achievement, but in judgment under pressure, in the ability to navigate both loyalty and competition. These lessons would later become critical, as the grandeur of his ambitions would attract both allies and critics, admirers and detractors. Notably, William's early challenges were not confined to material or social domains. They were moral as well. Gilded Age America was a world in which wealth could confer near-limitless freedom, yet freedom carried responsibility. Decisions about money, influence, and public perception were rarely simple. William faced ethical dilemmas in investment, construction, and social engagement, often weighing personal desire against public consequence. It was during these formative years that he began to understand a principle that would echo through the rest of his life: that ambition, when unchecked by reflection and prudence, could lead not only to loss, but to reputational harm. Despite these lessons, William's early career also revealed his resilience. Each failure, setback, or social misstep did not deter him. Instead, it honed his skills, clarified his vision, and strengthened his determination. Where others might have been cautious or conservative, William saw opportunity. Where others hesitated in the face of criticism, he pressed forward. This combination of ambition tempered by experience would later manifest in his most famous and most scrutinized undertaking: a mansion designed not merely to house a family, but to proclaim an identity, a taste, and a legacy to the world. By the mid-1870s, William had accumulated not only wealth, but confidence. His early experiments in architecture, social maneuvering, and investment had provided a toolkit of skills, lessons, and contacts. He had discovered that success was rarely linear, that admiration often coexisted with envy, and that human judgment was as important as financial acumen. In essence, he had learned to navigate a world in which power, taste, and morality intersected, a world that would challenge him as he prepared to embark on his most audacious project yet. In retrospect, these early struggles were not mere preludes, they were foundational. They revealed William K. Vanderbilt's character in miniature, his eye for detail, his love of grandeur, his willingness to take risks, and his occasional blind spots. They prepared him for the demands of ambition at a scale few could imagine, and they set the stage for a life in which triumph and controversy would always walk hand in hand. By facing both failure and critique early on, William learned lessons that wealth alone could not teach: patience, discernment, and the understanding that a grand vision requires more than imagination. It demands endurance, foresight, and a capacity to learn from missteps. Ultimately, these formative experiments in life, work, and society laid the groundwork for a defining period: the creation of a mansion that would become both a marvel and a cautionary tale. The ambitions nurtured in youth, tested through early struggles, now sought expression on a monumental scale. Every lesson, every misstep, and every success would converge in a single project destined to challenge not only William's resources, but his judgment, character, and legacy. By the late 1870s, William K. Vanderbilt had emerged from his formative years of experimentation with a vision that was singular, audacious, and unmistakably his own. The estates he had invested in, the social endeavors he had managed, and the experiments in taste and architecture had all led him to one inevitable conclusion: if he was to leave a mark that would endure, it could not be subtle. It could not be ordinary. It had to be grand, monumental. A physical embodiment of both wealth and identity, a statement of ambition in stone, marble, and art. The project he undertook was unprecedented in scale. While earlier estates reflected refinement and taste, this new undertaking would stretch beyond conventional limits, testing not only his financial resources but his imagination. Vanderbilt envisioned a mansion that would surpass any private residence in America, a home that would rival European palaces, yet be entirely his own. He sought to create a residence that would speak to the world about who he was, what he valued, and how far human ingenuity could stretch when paired with ambition. Planning began with a meticulous attention to detail. Architects were consulted, drafts revised, and craftsmen summoned from Europe and America alike. Every corner of the proposed mansion was debated and refined. Vanderbilt had developed an aesthetic sensibility during his European travels, and now he sought to translate that into a distinctly American grandeur. Marble floors imported from Italy, intricate woodwork carved by master artisans, ceilings painted with allegorical scenes, and gardens laid out with geometric precision, all reflected a careful integration of influence, taste, and personal vision. No expense was spared, for Vanderbilt believed that true grandeur required investment not only in materials, but in the human effort that transformed stone and wood into art. Yet the project was far from simple. Construction of a mansion of this magnitude posed practical challenges that tested both resources and patience. Laborers needed to be coordinated with precision. Schedules had to accommodate the slow importation of exotic materials, and the evolving design required constant adjustments. Cost projections were frequently exceeded, and at times, the ambition of the vision threatened to overwhelm the logistics of execution. But Vanderbilt, confident in his understanding of both craft and finance, pressed forward. He understood that the mansion's value was not merely in its rooms or its gardens, but in its symbolism. A physical manifestation of a legacy, a statement of identity, and an assertion of cultural significance. The mansion's design reflected both innovation and personal taste. Each room was carefully curated, a balance between opulence and function. Grand ballrooms were paired with intimate salons. Vast dining halls overlooked gardens designed to evoke harmony between nature and architecture. Artworks adorned the walls, selected not merely for display, but to convey meaning, to reflect history, culture, and Vanderbilt's own aesthetic sensibilities. It was a home designed for living, for hosting, and for being seen, a space that demanded engagement with both private life and public perception. Vanderbilt's personal involvement in the project was relentless. He scrutinized drafts, debated with architects, and personally selected materials. Every column, every molding, every garden path was subject to his attention. His determination reflected not only pride, but a desire to create something enduring, a residence that would outlast fleeting trends and social fashions. In this pursuit, he revealed a core aspect of his character, an unyielding commitment to excellence, coupled with a belief that vision, when pursued with diligence, could overcome obstacles of cost, logistics, or social skepticism. Public response to the mansion was immediate and intense. The press followed its construction, reporting on its scale, design, and expense. Society speculated on the implications of such opulence, with some praising Vanderbilt's taste and ambition, while others whispered about extravagance and the potential folly of a project so ambitious. In the eyes of the public, the mansion was more than a home. It was a spectacle, a manifestation of both human aspiration and human vanity. Vanderbilt, however, seemed undeterred by critique. He understood that greatness is rarely without detractors, and that ambition, by its very nature, attracts attention. The mansion also represented a personal triumph for Vanderbilt, a tangible proof that he could assert identity and authority separate from the shadow of his ancestors. Cornelius Vanderbilt's empire had created the fortune, but William K. Vanderbilt's vision had transformed that fortune into something visible, monumental, and uniquely personal. It was an achievement that combined wealth, taste, and determination, reflecting both the advantages and responsibilities of his inheritance. Yet even in this triumph, the seeds of future challenges were evident. The scale and expense of the project would place enormous demands on financial and managerial resources. Maintenance, staffing, and ongoing investment were realities that could not be ignored, and even the most meticulous planning could not fully account for the pressures of social expectation and public scrutiny. Vanderbilt's ambition, while remarkable, carried risks that would later contribute to both personal strain and public controversy. The mansion's completion marked a turning point, not only in Vanderbilt's life but in American architectural history. It stood as a symbol of possibility, showing that wealth, when combined with vision, could produce works that rivaled those of European nobility. At the same time, it highlighted the tension inherent in ambition. The pursuit of greatness can inspire awe, but it also invites challenge, critique, and the burden of maintenance. The mansion was a triumph, but it was also a test of judgment, resources, and foresight. For Vanderbilt personally, the mansion fulfilled more than practical or aesthetic purposes. It was a canvas for experimentation, a stage for social engagement, and a monument to personal achievement. It allowed him to exercise taste, judgment, and strategic planning on a scale that smaller projects could not accommodate. Moreover, it provided a sense of identity beyond mere inheritance, demonstrating that his vision could translate wealth into lasting cultural significance. Even as he enjoyed the fruits of his labor, Vanderbilt remained aware of the mansion's broader implications. It was not merely a private residence, it was a statement to the world, a reflection of societal values, and a challenge to the boundaries of personal ambition. In designing and overseeing such a complex project, he confronted questions that would resonate throughout his life. How much should ambition stretch? What are the limits of human creativity when constrained only by resources and taste? And how does one balance personal desire with societal expectation, aesthetic ideal with practical reality? By the time the mansion was complete, William K. Vanderbilt had achieved something remarkable. He had transformed vision into reality, imagination into stone and marble, and personal ambition into a physical testament to capability. The mansion was more than a house, it was a declaration. Yet, as with all grand achievements, it came with responsibilities that were not always immediately visible. Its scale demanded management, foresight, and judgment, and these very demands would later challenge Vanderbilt in ways that no plan, no wealth, and no ambition could fully anticipate. In retrospect, the construction of this mansion represented the pinnacle of William K. Vanderbilt's early career. It encapsulated the lessons of youth, the ambition of maturity, and the desire to define oneself within both family legacy and societal expectation. It was an achievement that would inspire admiration, provoke critique, and ultimately shape the trajectory of a life lived in pursuit of both grandeur and recognition. The mansion was not merely a structure, it was a mirror of Vanderbilt himself, complex, ambitious, visionary, and ultimately human, with all the strengths and vulnerabilities that ambition entails. Behind the grandeur of mansions, estates, and social prestige, William K. Vanderbilt lived a life defined not only by wealth, but by relationships, choices, and personal values. Public perception often focused on his achievements, the scale of his ambition, and the spectacle of his mansion, but the private dimensions of his life reveal a man shaped by family, friendship, and human desire, dimensions that would influence his decisions as much as business or architecture. Family remained central to William's existence. He was a devoted husband and father, attentive to the needs and reputations of those closest to him. Marriage for a man of his stature was both a personal bond and a social contract. In selecting a spouse, William navigated the intricate expectations of his class, choosing a partner whose presence would complement not only his personal life, but also his public persona. Their relationship was, by many accounts, one of mutual respect and shared ambition, though it was inevitably shaped by the demands of wealth and visibility. Within the household, William strove to balance paternal guidance with indulgence, seeking to instill values of responsibility, taste, and refinement in his children. Friendship, too, played a vital role in William's life. He maintained a circle of confidants, advisors, and fellow enthusiasts of art, architecture, and society. These relationships were essential not only for social navigation, but also for personal growth. Friends challenged his ideas, provided counsel, and offered perspectives that helped him negotiate both triumphs and setbacks. Within these intimate circles, William displayed qualities often hidden from the public eye: loyalty, empathy, and a genuine interest in the lives and opinions of others. Yet, friendships were not free from complexity. Social alliances required careful management, and occasional rivalries or misunderstandings reminded him that wealth could complicate even the most genuine human bonds. Beyond family and friends, William's personal dimension was defined by a profound engagement with art, culture, and leisure. He pursued interests that reflected both personal taste and the refinement expected of a man of his standing. Art collecting became more than a hobby. It was a statement of discernment and an extension of his identity. Music, literature, and the pleasures of travel offered respite from the pressures of public life, providing spaces in which he could cultivate intellect, emotion, and aesthetic sensibility. These pursuits enriched his private life while simultaneously reinforcing his public image as a man of taste and sophistication. Yet life in wealth is rarely uncomplicated. William's private sphere was intertwined with the demands of public expectation, and he often found himself negotiating between personal desire and societal scrutiny. Decisions regarding how to live, what to acquire, and which relationships to prioritize carried consequences beyond the individual. Each choice was observed, interpreted, and critiqued by peers and the broader public. In this environment, William developed a keen understanding of balance, how to satisfy personal inclinations without courting scandal, how to express individuality while adhering to social norms, and how to maintain authenticity in a world that constantly measured appearances. William's character revealed itself in subtle ways within these private moments. His attention to detail, so evident in architecture and design, extended to his family and friendships. He noted personal preferences, anticipated needs, and took care in selecting experiences, gifts, and activities that would reflect thoughtfulness. Yet he was also human in his imperfections, moments of impatience, occasional impulsiveness, and the occasional indulgence in extravagance reminded those close to him that ambition and wealth do not erase human flaws. These traits, balanced by genuine affection and care, painted a portrait of a man whose complexity mirrored the intricacy of his achievements. Romantic relationships beyond marriage, though less visible, also influenced his personal development. Like many of his peers, William navigated a world in which attraction, loyalty, and discretion often coexisted uneasily. These experiences offered lessons in judgment, ethics, and human emotion, shaping his understanding of trust and consequence. The nuances of desire, affection, and propriety were ever present, providing both joy and challenge. In many ways, these experiences prepared him for the scrutiny he would face in later controversies, offering insight into the tension between private life and public reputation. William's sense of personal identity was closely tied to the notion of legacy. He understood that his life would be measured not only by wealth or achievement, but by the influence he had on those around him, the mark he left on society, and the moral example he set. Within his family, he cultivated values of responsibility, refinement, and cultural engagement. Within society, he demonstrated taste, generosity, and a commitment to leadership in social and philanthropic circles. Yet, this consciousness of legacy could also generate pressure. The desire to do well by both family and society sometimes conflicted with personal inclination, requiring careful navigation between self-interest and duty. Leisure and personal indulgence, though, were not absent from his life. Vanderbilt found solace in travel, the pleasures of horse racing, art, and other pursuits that combined refinement with excitement. These activities were more than diversions. They were spaces in which he could exercise judgment, creativity, and strategic thinking. Even seemingly casual endeavors reflected ambition, taste, and calculated risk, qualities that defined both his personal and public life. The mansion itself, as much a part of private life as public spectacle, became a canvas for exploring these dimensions. It was a space where family gathered, friendships were nurtured, and personal passions could be realized. Its halls and gardens hosted both intimate moments and public displays, offering insight into the interplay between human desire and social expectation. Within its walls, William negotiated the demands of identity, relationships, and legacy, balancing the personal with the monumental. Through all these experiences, one can see the contours of William K. Vanderbilt's human dimension. He was not merely a businessman or socialite. He was a husband, father, friend, and individual navigating the complexities of wealth, ambition, and society. His achievements were inseparable from his relationships, choices, and character. Success and failure, admiration and criticism, public life and private reflection, all coexisted, shaping a man whose life was as intricate as the mansion he built. Ultimately, Chapter 4 reveals that William K. Vanderbilt's legacy is as much personal as it is material. His relationships, values, and character informed every major decision, guiding ambition, informing judgment, and shaping the experience of those around him. The grandeur of wealth and architecture alone cannot define a life. It is the human dimension, the capacity for love, friendship, reflection, and moral discernment that gives meaning to achievement. In understanding William, one sees not just a builder of mansions, but a man navigating the delicate balance between privilege and responsibility, ambition and humanity, public acclaim and private fulfillment. In this balance, the seeds of both triumph and difficulty were sown. His relationships would support him in moments of challenge and critique him when choices led to controversy. His values would inspire acts of generosity and discernment, even as ambition pushed the boundaries of prudence. The personal and human dimension of his life would intersect repeatedly with public perception, business decisions, and social expectation, highlighting the complexity of a life lived in pursuit of both excellence and identity. The richness of William's personal life demonstrates that history is rarely a tale of achievement alone. It is also a story of human experience, of love, responsibility, judgment, and the interplay between private choices and public consequences. In examining these dimensions, we gain a deeper understanding of the man who built America's grandest mansion, a man of vision, ambition, taste, and humanity, whose personal life was inseparable from the extraordinary story he was creating. Even the most remarkable achievements carry the weight of consequence. And for William K. Vanderbilt, the grandeur of his mansion and the scale of his ambitions brought challenges that were as complex as they were public. By the 1880s, as his residence neared completion and his social presence expanded, the pressures of wealth, expectation, and human imperfection began to collide. The mansion, once a symbol of triumph, became both a source of pride and a testing ground for judgment, foresight, and character. Financial strain emerged as an immediate concern. Constructing a mansion of unprecedented scale demanded not only vast sums for materials and labor, but also ongoing investment for maintenance and staffing. Vanderbilt's attention to detail, marble imported from Europe, custom furnishings, elaborate gardens, and commissioned artwork, exponentially increased the cost beyond initial projections. While the family fortune could absorb such expenditure, it was a reminder that ambition carries tangible consequences. Every decision, from hiring artisans to selecting rare materials, required careful balancing between vision and practicality. Miscalculations were costly, and the pursuit of perfection often forced compromises elsewhere in life. Beyond finances, social scrutiny intensified. The Gilded Age was a society of observers, where every act of wealth could be lauded as taste or criticized as ostentation. Newspapers chronicled Vanderbilt's choices, commenting on extravagance and the audacity of building a mansion of such scale. While many admired his vision, others questioned the necessity, moral implications, and social propriety of his endeavors. Gossip and critique were inevitable, and Vanderbilt learned that visibility comes at the price of judgment. Even private decisions, once exposed, could provoke debate and shape public perception. This tension between personal intent and public interpretation became a recurring challenge throughout his life. Vanderbilt also faced criticism from within his own family and social circles. The pursuit of grandeur, while admired by some, prompted concern from others who feared imprudence or overreach. Advisors and relatives occasionally questioned the logic of extravagant expenditure, particularly given the unpredictability of economic conditions and the demands of maintaining an elite lifestyle. These tensions required diplomacy, patience, and a capacity to negotiate between vision and counsel. Vanderbilt's responses demonstrated both confidence and occasional stubbornness, reflecting a personality willing to press forward even when confronted with caution. Legal and contractual challenges further complicated matters. Building a mansion of such scale involved agreements with architects, contractors, and suppliers across continents. Delays, disputes over materials, and disagreements regarding design details tested both patience and managerial skill. Vanderbilt learned firsthand that human factors, miscommunication, differing priorities, and unexpected setbacks could disrupt even the most meticulously planned project. These experiences reinforced lessons from his earlier ventures. Ambition demands both vision and practical oversight, and success often depends as much on human management as on resources. Personal controversies occasionally arose in parallel. Vanderbilt's indulgence in leisure pursuits, from horse racing to social events, sometimes attracted criticism for perceived excess. The very qualities that fueled his creativity and vision, confidence, taste, and willingness to push boundaries, could also invite judgment, particularly in a society that monitored public morality and propriety. Instances of tension, whether in personal conduct or social perception, revealed the delicate balance required when wealth intersects with public attention. The same traits that inspired admiration could also provoke censure, and Vanderbilt's life became a testament to the dual-edged nature of visibility. Despite these challenges, Vanderbilt's ambition remained steadfast. The mansion continued to progress, embodying both triumph and tension. Yet the scale of his vision now illuminated vulnerabilities, financial strain, logistical pressure, and the moral scrutiny of a society ever alert to excess. Even those who admired him recognized that maintaining grandeur required more than wealth. It demanded foresight, prudence, and adaptability. Vanderbilt's journey through these difficulties showcased both his resilience and the limits inherent in human judgment, highlighting the interplay between personal drive and external constraint. Professional setbacks occasionally compounded social pressures. Investments outside real estate and construction carried risk, and not all ventures yielded the returns or recognition anticipated. Failures, though less visible than the construction of the mansion, reminded Vanderbilt that fortune, while immense, was not limitless in its immunity to error. Strategic miscalculations, market shifts, or unforeseen circumstances could all disrupt even the most secure position. These experiences reinforced a vital principle. Ambition is inseparable from risk, and even careful planning cannot eliminate the possibility of setback. Yet, the mansion itself became the focal point for both admiration and controversy. Critics questioned whether such an expansive residence was practical, whether its cost reflected prudence, and whether the pursuit of aesthetic perfection had overshadowed common sense. Supporters defended it as a testament to taste, vision, and cultural contribution. Vanderbilt, for his part, navigated these contrasting opinions with a mixture of confidence and pragmatism, aware that public debate is inherent to endeavors of magnitude. The mansion was both a triumph and a challenge, a tangible reflection of the duality inherent in ambition itself. Ethical considerations also played a subtle but meaningful role. Vanderbilt's wealth provided immense power and influence, and with it came responsibility. Decisions about how to allocate resources, manage labor, and engage with society were not purely financial. They carried moral weight. How one treats workers, how one balances personal desire against social obligation, and how one responds to critique, all reflected character. Vanderbilt's early experiences in family, society, and investment informed his approach, yet challenges remained. Ambition could inspire excellence, but it could also obscure prudence, creating tension between moral responsibility and personal aspiration. Throughout these controversies, one constant remained: William K. Vanderbilt's resilience. Challenges did not deter him, they refined him. Social scrutiny, financial strain, and legal hurdles became lessons in patience, judgment, and strategy. Each setback reinforced the skills honed during his early experiments, reminding him that wealth and ambition alone do not secure success. Triumph required insight, perseverance, and a willingness to confront human complexity, the very qualities that would continue to shape both his achievements and the controversies that followed. In retrospect, these challenges and controversies are inseparable from Vanderbilt's legacy. They illustrate that ambition, however magnificent, carries consequences that are both practical and human. The mansion, while a symbol of taste and achievement, also serves as a reminder of the demands placed upon those who pursue greatness. Vanderbilt's experiences demonstrate that success is rarely linear. It is often interwoven with difficulty, scrutiny, and moral negotiation. These realities, while difficult in the moment, ultimately define the depth and richness of accomplishment. The story of Vanderbilt's challenges is also a story of character. It reveals a man capable of extraordinary vision, yet subject to the pressures and imperfections inherent in any life of prominence. His responses to adversity, judgment, and controversy illuminate both strengths and vulnerabilities, offering insight into the human dimensions of wealth, ambition, and legacy. In navigating these trials, Vanderbilt's life underscores a timeless truth. Greatness demands courage, endurance, and discernment. Yet it inevitably exposes the individual to the weight of consequence. Thus, Chapter 5 emphasizes the duality of achievement: triumph and tension, admiration and scrutiny, wealth and responsibility. Vanderbilt's challenges and controversies reveal the costs of ambition, the demands of visibility, and the enduring complexity of human endeavor. They prepare the stage for the next chapter: the resolution and legacy of a man whose vision created wonders, provoked debate, and left an indelible mark on both history and architecture. The passage of time has a way of revealing the true measure of ambition. For William K. Vanderbilt, the mansion he built to symbolize vision, taste, and personal achievement became both a triumph and a cautionary tale. While it stood as a monument to wealth and artistic sensibility, it also exposed the vulnerabilities inherent in even the grandest human endeavors. As the years progressed, the pressures of maintaining such a colossal estate, coupled with shifting economic realities and social expectations, reshaped the story of Vanderbilt's life and the meaning of his achievements. Financial strain, long a companion to his grand vision, grew increasingly evident. The sheer scale of the mansion demanded ongoing resources. Staffing, maintenance, and preservation all required substantial expenditure. Even with a family fortune capable of absorbing such costs, the mansion's demands were relentless, consuming attention, energy, and wealth. Over time, these practical realities began to temper the initial exhilaration of creation, highlighting that monumental achievement carries responsibilities beyond conception and construction. Ambition, no matter how well-funded, exacts a toll. Public perception of the mansion evolved alongside these practical challenges. Initially admired for its grandeur and innovation, the estate eventually became a symbol for critics of excess. Commentators and social observers debated whether such extravagance was necessary or prudent, using the mansion as a lens through which to critique the broader culture of wealth. These judgments were not purely personal. They reflected anxieties about societal values, economic disparity, and the moral implications of conspicuous consumption. Vanderbilt's creation, magnificent as it was, inevitably sparked reflection on the balance between vision and responsibility. Yet, despite these criticisms, the mansion's impact was undeniable. Architecturally, it set new standards for residential design in America, blending European elegance with uniquely American scale and ambition. Its influence extended to peers and successors, inspiring the construction of other grand estates and shaping the aesthetic landscape of elite society. In this sense, Vanderbilt's work transcended personal ambition, contributing to a broader cultural and architectural legacy. The mansion was both a personal triumph and a milestone in American design history. William's legacy, however, cannot be measured by architecture alone. His contributions to society included not only physical monuments, but also lessons in ambition, taste, and the human dimension of achievement. He demonstrated that vision requires courage, that success carries responsibilities, and that personal endeavor is inseparable from public consequence. These lessons, though subtle, endure in the broader understanding of wealth, culture, and human aspiration. Vanderbilt's life encourages reflection on the intersection of privilege, judgment, and moral responsibility. Within his family, the legacy of Vanderbilt's ambition and foresight was both inspiring and instructive. Children and relatives observed firsthand the rewards and perils of extraordinary achievement. The mansion, with its scale and grandeur, became a practical lesson in management, taste, and the consequences of human decision-making. These lessons extended beyond architecture, influencing social conduct, family dynamics, and approaches to responsibility. In shaping both personal and familial expectations, William's choices offered guidance for navigating the complexities of wealth and social prominence. Over time, the mansion also became a reflection of historical change. The economic and social currents of the late 19th and early 20th centuries shifted societal priorities. What had once symbolized cultural and financial leadership began to represent the challenges of sustaining excess. Maintenance, labor, and public scrutiny increasingly highlighted the delicate balance required to preserve such a monumental creation. The mansion's story, therefore, offers a broader commentary on the ephemeral nature of human ambition and the enduring tension between vision and practicality. Vanderbilt's personal reputation likewise evolved. Admired in youth for taste, discernment, and achievement, he later faced nuanced judgment. While contemporaries acknowledged his contributions to architecture and society, they also noted the pitfalls of extravagance and overreach. These dualities define the complexity of his legacy. A man capable of brilliance, foresight, and influence, yet also susceptible to the pressures, limitations, and human imperfections that accompany great ambition. His story is a testament to the intertwined nature of accomplishment and responsibility. Philanthropy, though less celebrated than the mansion itself, also forms a part of Vanderbilt's enduring impact. Throughout his life, he contributed to cultural institutions, social initiatives, and educational endeavors, demonstrating an awareness of responsibility beyond personal gain. These efforts, often overshadowed by the spectacle of his estate, reflect a dimension of legacy rooted in moral consideration and societal contribution. They remind us that the measure of a life extends beyond tangible monuments, encompassing influence on ideas, institutions, and communities. Ultimately, the decline or transformation of the mansion underscores the impermanence inherent in all human creations. Though the structure may remain physically impressive, the forces of time, economics, and societal change ensure that no achievement, however monumental, is immune to evolution or reinterpretation. Vanderbilt's grand estate illustrates a universal truth. Ambition and vision are meaningful not only in their creation, but in how they are maintained, adapted, and remembered. The mansion's fate, whether in preservation, alteration, or decline, reflects the enduring tension between human aspiration and temporal reality. William K. Vanderbilt's life, as viewed through both achievement and challenge, presents a portrait of ambition tempered by human experience. His successes were extraordinary, his choices instructive, and his legacy complex. He demonstrated that wealth and vision can produce enduring influence, yet they also expose the individual to scrutiny, moral consideration, and the pressures of responsibility. The mansion, while perhaps the most visible symbol of his life, is inseparable from the broader narrative of human ambition and societal expectation. In the final analysis, Vanderbilt's legacy is not solely material or aesthetic. It resides equally in the lessons drawn from his triumphs and struggles, the moral and social reflections his life provokes, and the human qualities revealed in both accomplishment and challenge. Ambition, when pursued with vision and discipline, can create wonders. Yet, it always carries the potential for oversight, risk, and consequence. Vanderbilt's life embodies this duality, offering insight into both the possibilities and limitations of wealth, power, and human endeavor. As history evaluates William K. Vanderbilt, it does so with recognition of complexity. He was a man of remarkable talent, taste, and ambition, yet also a man constrained by human imperfection and the demands of circumstance. The mansion stands as both tribute and cautionary tale, a physical testament to vision, a reminder of the costs of ambition, and a reflection of the intricate balance between aspiration and responsibility. In this balance, Vanderbilt's life finds enduring significance, inviting reflection on what it means to create, to strive, and to leave a mark upon the world. By the end of his life, the lessons of perseverance, judgment, and foresight had become clear. His legacy encompasses triumph and tension, admiration and critique, vision and consequence. Through his work, both material and personal, William K. Vanderbilt shaped the contours of culture, architecture, and society, leaving an enduring mark that continues to inspire reflection on ambition, human complexity, and the timeless pursuit of greatness. The mansion that once towered over New York's streets, gleaming in marble and gold, now stands in memory as a testament to ambition, vision, and human complexity. The story that began in the heart of a young heir's childhood, shaped by family, education, and personal exploration, comes full circle in the reflection of what was built and what was ultimately lost. The narrative of William K. Vanderbilt is one of contrasts, triumph and tension, aspiration and vulnerability, visibility and intimacy. As we return to the opening scene, the lessons and impressions of his life crystallize, offering both admiration and reflection. William K. Vanderbilt's life began in the shadow of a family legacy that few could comprehend. Born into wealth, opportunity, and expectation, he inherited both privilege and scrutiny. His youth, filled with education, travel, and exposure to art and culture, shaped his tastes and ambitions. Early experiments in estates, investments, and social life taught him the delicate balance between risk and reward, vision and practicality. These formative years laid the groundwork for the man who would undertake one of the most audacious residential projects in American history. A mansion that embodied personal identity, family legacy, and cultural ambition. The mansion itself, both creation and challenge, defined the middle years of his life. Vanderbilt poured vision, resources, and meticulous attention into every detail, transforming imagination into a structure of unprecedented scale and beauty. Marble floors, sculpted ceilings, expansive gardens, and galleries of art were more than decoration. They were expressions of taste, skill, and human aspiration. The mansion symbolized his desire to leave a mark, to assert individuality within the vast shadow of family fortune, and to demonstrate that wealth could be transformed into enduring cultural contribution. Yet, even amid achievement, challenges persisted. Financial strain, social scrutiny, and moral complexity tested Vanderbilt's judgment and character. He navigated the demands of society, family, and personal desire, learning that ambition carries responsibility. Public critique, subtle rivalries, and the pressures of maintaining grandeur highlighted that visibility and achievement are inseparable from risk. Success, while dazzling, invited both admiration and caution. Vanderbilt's response to these pressures revealed his resilience, capacity for strategic thought, and willingness to endure scrutiny in pursuit of vision. Equally significant was the human dimension of his life. Marriage, family, and friendships provided grounding, insight, and companionship. These relationships were not merely background to his public achievements. They shaped decisions, influenced character, and reflected the complexity of a life lived in wealth and visibility. Personal indulgences, cultural pursuits, and social connections enriched his existence, revealing dimensions of Vanderbilt often obscured by the scale of his material accomplishments. His life demonstrates that the measure of a man lies as much in relationships and character as in the structures he builds or the fortunes he manages. The controversies and challenges that accompanied his ambitions illuminate enduring lessons. Financial strain, ethical questions, and public scrutiny are constants in lives marked by prominence and wealth. Vanderbilt's experiences show that the pursuit of greatness is inseparable from risk, and that human judgment, no matter how skilled, is continually tested by circumstance. Yet these same challenges enrich the narrative, illustrating resilience, foresight, and the complexity of moral and practical decision-making. Triumph and difficulty coexist, shaping both legacy and historical memory. The mansion, as both symbol and reality, encapsulates this duality. While it stands as a monument to taste, wealth, and architectural achievement, it also serves as a cautionary reflection on the impermanence of human endeavor. Its maintenance demanded extraordinary resources, its visibility invited critique, and its scale challenged even the most capable steward. In its story, we see that the pursuit of ambition, however noble or visionary, always carries consequence. The mansion is a mirror of Vanderbilt himself, grand, meticulously crafted, ambitious, and subject to the tests of time and circumstance. In reflecting upon Vanderbilt's life, one observes a constant interplay between aspiration and consequence, individuality and legacy, creation and limitation. His achievements were extraordinary, yet his story reminds us that greatness is never absolute. It is a combination of vision, effort, judgment, and resilience, interwoven with human imperfection. Vanderbilt's life offers insight not only into wealth and power, but also into the broader human condition. The desire to create, to leave a mark, and to reconcile ambition with responsibility. Even as time altered public perception and transformed the physical reality of the mansion, the lessons of Vanderbilt's life endure. Architecture, wealth, and social influence were tangible measures of success, but the intangible dimensions, judgment, perseverance, and character, define lasting legacy. He demonstrated that personal vision can translate privilege into contribution, yet also reminded the world that ambition, unchecked or untempered, brings challenges. This balance between creation and consequence, between human capacity and limitation, forms the enduring significance of his story. Vanderbilt's life, when viewed in totality, is a narrative of reflection. The opening scene of the mansion, its towering structure, its opulence, its capacity to awe, becomes symbolic of the broader human pursuit. The striving for greatness, the desire for legacy, and the confrontation with limitation. Every room, every detail, and every decision within that mansion speaks to ambition pursued with passion, diligence, and vision, yet also tempered by human imperfection. In revisiting this scene, one appreciates both the scale of achievement and the weight of responsibility that accompanies it. Ultimately, the story of William K. Vanderbilt returns us to fundamental questions about wealth, ambition, and humanity. How do we measure success? Is it in the magnitude of achievement, the visibility of creation, or the depth of human engagement? Vanderbilt's life suggests that all three are inseparable. Achievement without reflection is hollow. Visibility without prudence is precarious. Ambition without responsibility invites challenge. His mansion, his social influence, and his personal relationships collectively form a narrative that is instructive, resonant, and deeply human. As the final reflection of his life settles, the mansion, whether preserved, altered, or gone, remains a symbol of possibility and caution alike. It embodies the heights to which human vision can reach, while reminding us that grandeur carries consequences. Vanderbilt's story, framed by early ambition, personal cultivation, extraordinary achievement, and the inevitable challenges of consequence, leaves an indelible impression. It is a story of human complexity, of striving and limitation, and of a life lived fully, with all the triumphs and trials that ambition entails. In the end, the man and his creation cannot be separated. William K. Vanderbilt's legacy is embedded in stone, marble, and memory. Yet it also resides in the lessons his life imparts. That vision requires courage, that wealth demands responsibility, and that human achievement is inseparable from human limitation. The mansion, towering in imagination and history, reflects the essence of a life both celebrated and scrutinized, a life of ambition, reflection, and enduring significance. And so, as the evening light fades over the city, the silhouette of the mansion against the sky invites contemplation. The story of William K. Vanderbilt, beginning in the inheritance of fortune and culminating in monumental creation, comes full circle. It reminds us that ambition shapes legacy, that human endeavor is always entwined with challenge, and that even the grandest creations are ultimately reflections of the people who dared to imagine them. In this final return, the narrative leaves a lasting impression, a meditation on wealth, vision, and the intricate, enduring complexity of the human experience.